יוסף קרופניק הוא מנהל הכשרות בוועד הרבנים האורתודוקסים של דטרויט. בשנות ה-60 הוא היה תלמיד בישיבת רבנו יעקב יוסף בלואר איסט סייד של ניו יורק.
Because of Rabbi, I started growing a beard. I stopped shaving. And that caused a lot of trouble. You have to understand that the environment was that this was when the hippies were really starting in the 60s. And on top of everything else, Yaakov Yosef was really just around the corner, so to speak, from Greenwich Village. It was like, 3 train stations away. And we were seeing some of the overflow, and the idea was that it was considered then improper kamat for a Litvish yeshiva bacher to go with the board. So what happened is that on the one hand, Rabbi Shapiro was pushing, and on the other hand, my Rebbeim were not enthusiastic about the fact, nor was my father. So I thought that what I would do is, since I had the Yechidus coming up and everything, covered the Yom Haledes, I thought that I would ask, and I was sure that that the Rebbe would say it's not, don't worry, take it off. I was positive that was what the answer was going to be. So what happened is that I went. Actually, Label was waiting for me when I came first in 770. I sat with him for a while until it was my turn. And it was about 1:30 in the morning that I had my turn to go in. So the parshas then are Yitzias Mitzrayim. Parshas of Shvat are the Inyanim of Yitzias Mitzrayim. So the Rebbe says, after he's explained Al Pi Halacha and then Al Pi Kabbalah, so the Rebbe suddenly says that the zikr that you're being Mavasadra, and that he says, therefore, what are the inyanim which went into the Yitzias Mitzrayim, and the Chazal say, that Klal Yisrael was really on Memtes Shari Tuma, and any longer in Kaviyachal they wouldn't have been able to come out. And that the reason why they were saved were in the schus of Sheloishini B'Shem, Sheloishini B'Levush, and Sheloishini B'Loshen. That these were the reasons why they were saved. So he says, and you tell me, he says to me, when you have names like, he starts going through the names of all the big ones, okay? A.B. Hoffman, and Ginsburg, and Abe Rudensky, Mark Rudd, and but his real name was Rudensky, right? He starts going through the names of all the big leaders of the hippies. He says, L'shini b'shem, he said in Yiddish and Nemener. L'shini b'levush, as he says, if we say that they were memte shari tuma, that means that it wasn't that they were wearing the levush l'shem shemayim, but it was simply that the levush was different from the average people in the street. That if you saw them walking down the street, you knew that this was a Mitzri and that this was a Yid. And it wasn't l'shem shemayim because they were orangutan and all the tumas of Mitzrayim. No, the teretz is that simply the fact that the levush was different, that was enough yet to be considered a schus. And we know that these hippies and everything are also going a different levush. That the levush, because that time it was still at the beginning, so it wasn't everybody was mimicking them, right? So there were the beads and there were these like ponchos and all these type of things. Yeah, there was definitely a unique levush to the hippies, who have all these Jewish names. Then the Rebbe's Mamshech, and he says, "L'shini b'loshen," so in Achinami it means Lashon HaKodesh, but the fact is that they have their own jargon, and that was most the word that the Rebbe used, they have their own jargon, and that therefore their language is not the same as the language of the average person in the street. So if L'shini b'loshen, L'shini b'levush, L'shini, wer sagt that they sind less zoiche to a geula than Klal Yisrael, and if you ask somebody, he says to me, if you ask somebody who's not in New York, about these hippies, the same way that if you would have asked somebody in 1930s, so-and-so is a socialist, they would have said, oh, it must be a Jew. And if you said in 1940, so-and-so is a communist, they would have said, oh, it must be a Jew. Now, he says, outside of New York, right, if you say somebody's a hippie, they'll tell you, oh, this is another one of those Jewish diseases that they've brought upon us. So who says that they're zech any less than Klal Yisrael was to have a geula? And so there too, he says, you can ask any ben chomish lemikra. Moshe Rabbeinu got aboard. The chomish ben mikra v'zogen is Moshe Rabbeinu got aboard. At nit gezen Moshe Rabbeinu, at nit gezen a bild. He didn't see Moshe Rabbeinu. He didn't see a picture of Moshe Rabbeinu. But for some reason, we're all sure that Moshe Rabbeinu had a beard. Weißt du, as das ist wie jeder Fleisch gucken mit aboard. That was it. And the Rebbe stopped, gave me a bracha for the Yom Haledes and everything. And as I say, a lot of Chabad Minhagim I'm not into, but I have never dared to take the beard off since.